It's amazing what you can learn just by looking at a map. This picture shows the position of every Atlantic tropical system that has passed by this point for the past 175 years. Nearly every one curves to the north and then to the northeast, never even getting close to the United States. But for every rule, there is an exception. One of these storms took an unusual turn while over 1,000 miles at sea. It was tropical system number 6 of the 2018 season. You know it by a different name, Florence. Atlantic hurricane season officially begins on June 1st. And every year on that date, you'll find people from all backgrounds speculating about our chances for a hit. But a funny thing happens in July and early August. Most people forget about the tropics. They turn instead to beach trips and summer fun. By September, they're looking ahead to autumn and back to school. But for forecasters, August and September are the months we watch the most.
Hurricanes rely on warm ocean water as a source of fuel, specifically water temperatures of 80 degrees or higher. Since temperatures peak in late summer, September is a prime time for development. But despite their size and power, most hurricanes start out small, little more than pockets of thunderstorms like this one. On August 30th, 2018, satellite images showed an organizing disturbance over West Africa. The system tracked south of Cape Verde the following day as thunderstorms continued to grow. By September 1st, the overall circulation improved and Tropical Storm Florence was born. When a storm forms near the Cape Verde Islands, it's usually about 7 to 14 days away from the United States, so forecasters have time to watch it. Predicting a landfall point at this distance is frankly impossible. Climatology is about the only useful tool. And with Florence already turning to the northwest by September 2nd, climatology favored a path out to sea. Even more promising was the fact that Florence was weakening. For a hurricane to become strong, it takes more than warm water. You need a favorable wind environment. On September 2nd, wind shear was tearing into Florence, and her future was uncertain. But the atmosphere can be quite fickle, and by September 4th, the shear was weakening. Florence took full advantage. Measuring a hurricane's intensity can be a challenging process. Satellite images are useful, but nothing beats direct observation. It takes a skilled pilot and perhaps a little daring to get those observations. For decades, the hurricane hunters have braved some of the strongest storms on Earth. These pilots probe hurricanes directly using a variety of aircraft, including the Air Force WC-130J and the NOAA P-3 Orion. Onboard radar and sensing equipment give crucial data on wind speed and pressure. The Gulfstream 4-jet samples the environment around a storm. This helps to provide a better computer model forecast, but Florence would prove difficult for even the best models to track. On September 5th, 2018, she exploded into a Category 4 hurricane with 130-mile-per-hour winds. In fact, Florence became the northernmost Category 4 hurricane ever recorded in this part of the Atlantic. It was the first of many records she would shatter.
Just like people, hurricanes have their own unique personality. Some are fairly easy to read. They move with a sense of purpose. Others are more elusive. On September 6, 2018, powerful Category 4 Florence started to weaken. Wind speeds diminished. Forward movement slowed. And later that night, Hurricane Florence did something most unusual. It suddenly turned to the west. So what happened? What change took place to alter the path? The answer would have deadly consequences. A hurricane hurricane doesn't decide where to go all by itself. To demonstrate, consider a chessboard. When pieces on one side of the board are moved, it forces the opponent to change path or risk being taken. In similar fashion, a hurricane's path can be altered by weather features around it. So to accurately predict the hurricane, you have to accurately predict every weather system nearby. That's a lot of moving pieces to track. On September 7, 2018, a high-pressure ridge started to build north of Hurricane Florence, effectively blocking her path. So she turned westward, and track predictions changed. Even though Florence was still over 1,000 miles away, it was becoming evident that a U.S. landfall was likely. It can take 4 to 6 days for a hurricane to journey the final 1,000 miles to land. It's a crucial time for our First Alert weather team, and we take full advantage. Each night, just before bedtime, around 2 a.m., I'll sit down and prepare a detailed email briefing for our staff. I'll include a synopsis and storm graphics. This way, our managers have a fresh update ready when they wake up. Our morning crew gives the latest forecast for viewers on air at the start of the day, but there's also a lot of planning behind the scenes. Our parent company, Nexstar Media Group, owns or operates television stations throughout the country, so we'll usually be on conference call early in the day, sharing ideas and pooling resources for coverage. By 1 p.m., we're in the WNCT-9 On Your Side studio preparing for our 2:30 hurricane briefing. Here we talk logistics, where to deploy reporters, technical preparations like fuel and generator backups, equipment checks, and computer maintenance. By 3:15 p.m., it's time to record commercials for the newscast so viewers know what to expect. Then it's time to assemble the show rundown, update our website with the latest video forecast. By 4 p.m., we're pushing the latest updates to Facebook and Twitter. We also have a network of radio partners, so we record updates for them as well. The latest coordinates from the National Hurricane Center usually come down at 4:45, so we have to build them into our show, which starts at 5 o'clock. For the next hour and a half, we're giving the latest storm information on air. After a quick dinner at 7, it's time to update the evening Facebook and Twitter feeds, post new tracks to the web, and talk to viewers via Facebook Live. We also have live discussions with other chief meteorologists at sister stations nationwide, since many states may lie in the path of the storm. At midnight, I'll leave forecast notes for the morning team, meet with the overnight producer to answer any questions, and before you know it, it's 2 a.m. again. There are many things that stick out in my mind in those final days before Florence made landfall, but none more clear than the weekend of September 8th and 9th. I was looking at the latest model projections, which by that time were indicating landfall in about 4 days. I remember clicking the image to see where Florence would head after landfall, but the graphic didn't change. I clicked a little further ahead, but the image appeared to be stuck. At first, I thought there was a glitch, and then I realized the date was changing, but the storm image wasn't moving. And that's when we realized that Florence would be unlike any hurricane we had seen before. When a hurricane approaches the coast, we're not just focused solely on the forecast. We're also focused on the way in which the forecast is delivered to the public. It's a detestable thing to hype a storm, especially when people have lost so much to past storms like Floyd and Matthew. When your home is damaged, it's almost like having a thief break in. It takes away your sense of security. And whenever a new storm threatens, you always ask yourself, will I see damage again? So we have a responsibility to issue a forecast to inform, not frighten. But as Hurricane Florence plowed westward on September 9th and 10th of 2018, the rainfall estimates being predicted by computer models were enough to frighten anyone. Data suggested that over 2 to 3 feet of rain could fall, especially if Florence stalled. These predictions were taken quite seriously by the National Hurricane Center, and at 5 a.m. on September 11th, hurricane watches were initiated along the North Carolina coast. Florence was now at peak intensity with winds of 140 miles an hour, a Category 4 hurricane. To make matters worse, 3 additional tropical systems were being monitored by September 12th. Although none of these new systems would impact North Carolina directly, it remained uncertain whether their presence would affect track models for Florence. With landfall just 48 hours away, our First Alert weather team was tracking Florence day and night. The time for speculation was coming to an end. The destination was becoming clear. Florence was headed for North Carolina.
It's going to be one of the biggest to ever hit the East Coast, one of the biggest to ever hit our country. FEMA has already placed extensive resources on the ground, including search and rescue experts, power restoration, and medical support.
Many of those evacuations in effect starting tomorrow.
There's really nowhere else for the water to go.
The outer rain bands of Florence arrived at the North Carolina coast early on the morning of September 13th, 2018. A turn which started over 1,000 miles earlier had guided the storm at last to our shores, and she had no intention of leaving quickly. For nearly 4 days, Florence pounded the Carolinas. A developing high-pressure ridge effectively blocked her escape route, and at times, Florence seemed to stall altogether. With such a slow forward speed, rain totals were measured in feet, not inches. Flash flooding became a deadly threat, cutting off roads and homes. But if there was a bright spot, Florence had weakened considerably. After peaking at Category 4 status just days before, Florence was officially a Category 1 when she came ashore near Wrightsville Beach on September 14th. Although sustained winds decreased to 90 miles per hour, gusts were higher, bringing down trees and power lines. The constant onshore churning brought a record-breaking storm surge of 9 to 13 feet along the coast, flooding homes and businesses. And it wasn't just the water that caused problems. Nearly 40 tornado warnings were issued in our area by the National Weather Service. Tornadoes may be common in landfalling hurricanes, but they are difficult to spot. Often, tornado signatures become buried in the overall squall line. This makes it hard to see on radar. So the National Weather Service will often err on the side of caution when tracking. In the end, the number of confirmed tornadoes is usually lower than the total warnings issued. As Florence continued to weaken over land, the tornado threat eventually diminished. But sometimes a storm can find new life by returning to sea. After traveling northward through several states, the leftover circulation of Florence pushed offshore of New England on September 18th. Here, the storm was absorbed by a nearby front. The combined system served as a catalyst for the formation of a new low-pressure area. Eventually, it gave birth to a new hurricane, Leslie. We watched the path closely, but Leslie would never visit our state. Not that anyone was complaining. Florence had done quite enough damage already. Tornadoes, significant surge, high winds. But for most residents, the greatest legacy of Florence was the water.
Part of the beauty of our state lies in the waterways. From the mountains to the coast, we enjoy our lakes, rivers, streams, and of course, a sunny day at the beach. But when hurricanes threaten, these peaceful waters can become deadly. Hurricane Florence brought rain totals that exceeded 30 inches in parts of North Carolina. In some cases, that's nearly 60% of the yearly rainfall average in just 4 days. There's no way for our waterways to contain that type of flow. Something has got to give way, literally.
The logic behind a river is fairly simple. As rain falls to the ground, it eventually passes through communities, fields, ditches, and even country roads until it finds its way to a nearby waterway. Mighty rivers like the Tar and Neuse guide this water to the ocean. The process can take several days. And along the way, there are gauge points to monitor the depth of the water. The more rain, the deeper the readings. Over time, these gauges offer a good historical guideline for predicting a flood. Just a few feet can be the difference between an inconvenience
into catastrophe.
You're right, Marquise. It is such a fine line, and to demonstrate how this works, consider this pan. It's already near capacity now, so it will only take a small amount of water to bring it from here all the way to here. Once the water reaches this point, it may only take a small amount more to bring it all the way to the counter. In the same way, river flooding occurs in stages, broadly defined as minor, moderate, and major.
The excessive rain of Florence led to flooding on an unprecedented scale in eastern North Carolina. The Trent River in Trenton reached 29.28 feet, over 16 feet above the flood stage. The northeast Cape Fear River in Chinkapin is believed to have topped 28 feet, over 15 feet above flood stage, shattering previous records set by Hurricane Floyd in 1999. The Neuse River in Kinston and Goldsboro also reached extreme levels. For some rivers, the exact numbers may never be known. Many gauges were badly damaged or destroyed. And consider the travel problems. Many counties are split by rivers. Even though WNCT is located in Greenville, we still have staff that live as far away as Wayne and even Carteret counties. During Florence, they were cut off from home as well, spending many days in hotels or here at the station. With a true monster like Florence, it's hard to find words to describe the scope of the damage, but the images speak volumes.
You can't underestimate the psychological toll it takes on local residents when you just getting to a point where you're coming out of some of the things with Matthew. Some folks are still trying to recover from it and then have to turn around and go through this. It's psychologically draining just for people who forecast it.
And we're all really in this together, as I mentioned.
We knew that flooding was going to be a major concern. You can see right now some of the water is still coming up.
See how large Florence is. We're really getting the backhand of Florence, seeing all of this rain still covering majority of the southern portion of eastern North Carolina. We need some relief here.
Courtney Allen near Sneads Ferry. Let's go back to her for an update. Courtney.
With these winds coming down, shingles flying off the roof of our hotel.
From the Frying Pan Shoals Tower, about 35 miles off the coast in Wilmington, and that place has been getting battered all day long. As we talk about the wind, it's been a while, fortunately, since we've had a tornado warning.
Yes.
Is that a trend that's going to continue, or do you think it's just a matter of time for another one pops up?
I think it is probably a matter of time. This one is moving west. So all of the stronger winds, all of the stronger rain, all the stronger surge potential, all the bad parts of the right side of the path, all of that will be dragged across central and eastern North Carolina.
And those river levels start to rise. We are just hoping the people who came here to seek shelter will not have to go find it somewhere else.
The water from the Trent and the Neuse rivers inundating many portions of this region of Craven County. Pictures tell the story.
Oh, for sure. Wow. I mean, just look at how close this is coming up to the
Amazing.
windows.
Despite all the hardship from Hurricane Florence, storms of such magnitude remind us of the dedication of our first responders, fire and rescue, police and sheriff's departments, our military, civilian leaders, and volunteers from every community. It's compassion and faith that help us survive. And make no mistake, the final numbers from Florence were staggering in North Carolina. Over 30 inches of rain in some counties, at least 19 confirmed tornadoes, over 40 residents killed in our state, and damages topping $17 billion, more than Hurricanes Matthew and Floyd combined. Of course, Matthew and Floyd were also hurricanes that created record flooding. Storms of the century, so to speak. So how many storms of the century can we take? The term 500-year flood is a little misleading. It doesn't mean that such floods happen only once every 500 years. It means, however, that in a given year, there's a 1 in 500 chance of seeing a similar event. We say this not to scare you, but merely to prove a point. This is hurricane country. In the 1950s, Hurricane Hazel hit our coast as a Category 4 hurricane with 145-mile-per-hour winds at landfall. Consider the 1955 hurricane season. North Carolina was hit by 3 tropical systems, Connie, Diane, and Ione, with a combined rain total of up to 34 inches. So hurricanes are nothing new in eastern North Carolina.
You're right, David. We need to take the lessons of past storms and build smarter, plan better, and be better informed. Hopefully it'll be a long time before we have to deal with another one, but regardless of when that day comes, we will be ready. From all of us here at WNCT9 and the First Alert Weather Team, I'm Chief Meteorologist Jerry Jackson. Thank you for joining us.